Everyone tonight here, because we haven't been here for a while, but I'll make that announcement later. So at this time, I'll call us to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would join us, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This time, Mr. Adams, roll call, please.
Here. Barnett? Here. Champlin?
Here.
Van Lente?
Here.
Smith? Absent. Peterson?
Here.
Schichtel?
Here.
Gregg? Fent? Putvin?
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you. The stage, folks, I need an approval of tonight's agenda here for September 23rd, 2013.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I second it.
Yes, sir.
Did I put something on your desk there, John?
Yes, sir. Do you want me to do that right this second?
Yeah, I would like to just add
sorry,
something to
that's
the
right.
agenda.
I was aware of it. Sorry, everybody.
Real quick item.
We, under new business, we're going to add item 5B for the Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion Master Plan. There will be a draft version, modifications, Should only take a few minutes that Mr. Adams will give us.
I just want to show you a drawing, basically.
So my apologies, I was supposed to read that before I got to the approval of the agenda. David?
Still approve.
Okay.
Or make a motion to approve.
Second?
I still second it.
Mr. Champlin, second. Roll call.
Okay, this is a motion by Van Lente, supported by Champlin, to approve the agenda for 9/23/2013 as amended. Okay, Schichtel?
Yes.
Champlin?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Barnett?
Yes.
Putvin?
Yes.
It's approved.
Wonderful. At this stage, before we go to approval of our minute meetings here from our last one, any public comment from the audience pertaining to anything not on our agenda? You're welcome. No? Okay. All righty. So moving right along, our last meeting was held April 22nd, 2013. So for all of those that missed us, we haven't been here till tonight, September 23rd. So anyway, I need a motion for approval of those minutes from April 22nd, 2013.
I make the motion to approve them.
Mr. Champlin, seconded by...
I'll second.
Mr. Schichtel. Roll, please.
Okay, motion by Champlin, supported by Schichtel, to approve the meeting minutes of 4/22/2013. Barnett?
Yes.
Champlin?
Yes.
Schichtel?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Putvin?
Yes.
Okay, they're approved.
Super. Tonight's agenda, we have a public hearing that we will start first with. The public hearing is to consider a request from Barbara Branham, representing the Florence Fisher Estate, for rezoning of 921 Aspen Street from B3 General Business to R2 One Family Residential District. So for everybody in your packet, this is documents 4A. Having done that, Mr. Adams?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. You have a summary of your Planning Commission packet I'd like to go through for the benefit of the Planning Commission as well as the public, and so we'll start there. Again, the request tonight, an application was submitted requesting rezoning of 921 Aspen Street from B3 General Business to R2 One Family Residential. Not the greatest aerial here, but 921 Aspen, I think you can see the arrow pointing to the property. The Aspen Street is the street running north and south. The large street right here, this is Mitchell, Granite, Aspen, and this is the property right here. If you're familiar with the area, this is Northwestern Bank right here, the gas station, Willow Mercantile. So kind of give you an idea of the general area that we're dealing with. As indicated, the applicant tonight, or the applicant's representative, is Barbara Branham. Her address is 5591 North Carly Court, Luther, Michigan, and she's representing the Florence Fisher estate, as the chair mentioned. Just a few photos of the site. This would be looking north up Aspen. That is the property on my right, or your right, I should say, front of the house, so to speak. Again, just a few shots. This is looking south up Aspen towards Granite. That car that you see up there is turning on to Granite Street. You can see the house behind the big tree there. This is a shot from the northern end of the site looking south. Again, let's see, Northwestern Bank kind of hidden there. That's the bank. This is the subject, the dwelling, and this is the property associated with the dwelling. This driveway, which is at the north end of the site, is associated with this home, or with that site. This is a shot looking south. I'm standing here in the bank's driveway. You can see the home is essentially right next to the bank's driveway, shielded, however, by a pretty massive area or segment of vegetation. And then this is looking towards the west. This is across the street from the bank and the subject property. It's residential, single-family residential, and essentially everything more or less to the west is single-family residential. Just a few shots of the area. As indicated, the applicant's father requested a rezoning of 921 Aspen from B3 general business to R2. I don't need to go through the legal description, and we've already mentioned the common address. You received a planning commission packet, just for the benefit of the public, what was in that packet. There was the application itself that was submitted. There was a site aerial taken from the city's GIS department showing the property. We provided a Wexford County Equalization information sheet. There was a copy of the public hearing notice and the staff report that went along with it. So we're going to basically summarize a lot of what you folks have already received about a week ago. Just for the benefit of the public, this is a rezoning, so it's a basic two-step process. We're in step one. The Planning Commission reviews the request, and they will make a recommendation that will be forwarded to the Cadillac City Council. If you were to make a recommendation tonight, then we will forward it to the next City Council meeting, which, Mayor, is that next Monday?
October 7th.
Okay, that's the meeting that this will go to. Tonight's meeting is being held as a public hearing. We notified every property owner and residents within 300 feet of the subject site as required by law. Then step two, again, this recommendation will go to City Council. They will review and make a decision on the rezoning. They have the final say in the matter, and they will also conduct a public hearing. That hearing, however, doesn't require notification of the surrounding property owners. That's done by this body. Just some background information. I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but as indicated, the property possesses a one-family dwelling. The applicant wishes to sell the home, but has been unable to do so. And she indicates it's largely because of the B3 general business classification that's attached to it, and we'll get into that in a second. And one of the big issues is that under the B3 classification is that should the home be destroyed, let's say by fire, for example, under the B3 regulations, it cannot be reconstructed either by right or with a special use permit because of that classification. And so buyers are reluctant to purchase the dwelling for residential purposes due to the zoning condition. May not be able to get insurance. Lending institutions may be reluctant to finance the purchase of the home due to the fact, again, of its zoning classification, because if the home were to burn down, again, it couldn't be rebuilt. So, there's some issues surrounding the lending of dollars on a situation like that. The home is listed as for sale, and I believe, and the applicants are here tonight, by the way, has been on the market for approximately 3 years, and I can attest that it has been on a relatively long period of time. I go by there a lot, and I've historically seen a for sale sign. We did look up, and there may the applicant may provide some additional information, but at least based on the Paul Bunyan multi-list service that you can look at on the internet, The home is currently listed at $51,009, at least as of last week when I looked this up. And again, that may be different, but the Wexford County Equalization Department, they have the home assessed at $28,200, which represents a true cash value of a little over $56,000. So the reason the home is sold is not because it's overvalued per se. In fact, the sale price is under what the County Equalization Department has it valued at. So I think that's important. Site is an interior lot, as you saw earlier, fronting Aspen Street. It's a rather narrow parcel, and that is 52 feet deep, but it's almost 200 feet in length. Aspen Street in front is a two-lane paved street with both residential and commercial traffic. A lot of the block that's both east and north of this piece of property, as well as south, but particularly north, does have some commercial development. So some of the traffic that utilizes Aspen is commercial in orientation. We don't have traffic counts for the streets, so I wasn't able to provide those. Properties to the northeast and south are Zone B3, as really the entire block that encompasses this property between Aspen, Cottage, Mitchell, and Granite. It's all B3. And then to the west, across the street, that is zoned R2, one-family residential. Some of the surrounding land uses, which I mentioned, are Willow Mercantile on the north, the Northwestern Bank to the immediate east and south, and the single-family line to the west. Just kind of shows you some of the zoning around it. Again, this is the subject site. To the east is B3, to the north is B3, to the immediate west is R2, which is the classification they're seeking, and to the south is also R2. There are four basic considerations the Planning Commission looks at. Obviously, there can be other factors that come into play, but with respect to a rezoning, first of all, you look at whether or not the classification that's being requested is compatible with the surrounding area and with the surrounding zone district classifications. Is the rezoning consistent with the city master plan? And if it's not, is the requested rezoning and the appropriate uses of the land, or are the uses of the land based on that zoning appropriate given the area? Are public facilities and services like water, sewer, emergency services, and so forth, are they capable of accommodating the land uses that are permitted by, in this case, the R2 classification? And lastly, is the classification equal to or more appropriate than the existing classification? So let's look at some of those. And again, you may have some questions. Just as a point of information, the B3, which this site is currently zoned, represents the city's broadest commercial classification. It allows just about everything commercial, pretty much. So it's not as though this site hasn't had the potential for being used for a variety of things, but for various reasons, no one, at least so far, has seen fit to purchase it and use it for any of those commercial uses. And perhaps that's because of the fact that it basically has a residential dwelling. As I mentioned, the block in which this site is located, the entire block, really from Cottage down to Granite, and between Aspen and Mitchell Street, is all Zone B3. However, the block does contain a mix of residential and commercial. This isn't the only home in that block. To the north on Cottage, which would be across the street, would be the pharmacy, and the new Glenn's, but the new dollar store would be just to the east. But there are four homes in that area as well. So it's not as though that it's strictly commercial in this area. And then properties to the immediate west across Aspen are zoned R2 single family, and they're developed as such. As mentioned, the B3 classification, it does permit a combination of things, including, interestingly, a residential and office mix in an existing residential dwelling as a special use. So if, let's say, somebody wanted to develop this for an office and live there as well, they could. But strictly as a single-family home, interestingly, it doesn't permit a single-family housing either by right or with special approval. However, it's since it's there, someone could buy it for a single family, but again, we get back to the issue of if it were to be destroyed, it could not be rebuilt. And that's the big issue, as indicated by the second bullet there. I think one of the things, too, in terms of compatibility, that I believe it's important to note that this residential site, as a residential use, has, pre-existed with nearby commercial uses for a number of decades without apparent conflict. So it's not as though the use is creating issues for, let's say, the bank or the nearby gas station, or in this now for Willow Mercantile and so forth. So there has been some compatibility, so to speak. In terms of its consistency with the master plan, the plan shows the entire block as commercial, and this is consistent with a trend of development that has occurred in the block, given the most recent uses such as Willow Mercantile, the dollar store, and the tattoo salon that was put into place a couple of years ago. In terms of existing facilities and services, that's not an issue. Existing facilities and services, be it water, sewer, emergency services, and so forth, they're fully capable of not only serving the B3 uses, but any of the R2 zone district uses as well. And then one of the other things we look at is, which is more appropriate, R2, B3, or are they somewhat both, potentially suitable for this location? Just a couple of comments. I think based on the site's character, location, its anticipated long-term use, its viable development potential, and the character surrounding development, it doesn't appear that the rezoning, if it were to be rezoned to R2, would probably have a significant impact on surrounding district classifications. In some cases it would, but in this location, I really don't think it will. The rezoning will recognize the primary use of the site, which it's been that use for many years, and would provide the home with the protection needed for rehabilitation or rebuilding should it be destroyed. I think the fact, as I mentioned earlier, that the home has been on the market for an extended period of time at a sale price that's below true cash value indicates that its attraction for uses permitted by the B3 district appears to be limited. It just hasn't sold for any of those uses. As noted earlier, the B3 district permits a combination home and office in a pre-existing building. And again, according to the applicant, and I have had some discussion with some of the realtors that have been associated with this property in the past trying to sell it, there have been no parties interested in the property for a combination use, nor for office uses alone. And the proposed classification is fully consistent with R2 zoning that's located directly west of the site. So it's not as though you're creating this little island where there aren't any other R2 zone district classifications around it. Right across the street there's a large R2 area. I did put, this was not something the applicant asked me to do, by the way, but I did put in the public hearing notice the fact that you would also possibly consider what's known as an OS2 zone district. That's an office service. Again, you don't have to consider this. It's totally up to you. But the OS2, which is a commercial classification, doesn't provide the same level of uses that a B3 does. It's more oriented to offices. But it does permit, by right, single-family residential in a building that's existing at the time of the adoption of the ordinance from which the chapter is derived. And so if it were to burn down, it could be rebuilt. And even as a special land use, the OS2 does allow for single-family residential. It would have to go through you. But basically, the only basic stipulation is that its construction has to be somewhat consistent with surrounding area and surrounding development, which should not be an issue. So that is an option. Again, it's not what the applicant requested, but my concern was that if you were hesitant to rezone it to R2, I didn't want to have the applicant coming back saying, okay, what do I do now? What's my fallback? And so I wanted to have, I don't want to call it an out, but I wanted to have an option 2, I guess you might say. We can discuss that in a minute if you like. In terms of communications from the mailings that went out to those within 300 feet, as well as we did put a notice in the newspaper, the Cadillac News. There haven't been any communications received either by mail, email, or by telephone. Planning Commission action tonight, if you wish to take it, number one is to recommend approval or denial of the requested rezoning based on a finding of fact, the information that we went through, as well as anything else that you want to discuss. And as noted, this recommendation is forwarded to the City Council along with your findings. I'll put together a staff report, basically, or it's really a Planning Commission report indicating what you did and why you did what you did. And if you think you need more time, you obviously can table this as well. Again, you can see the star or whatever, that's the location of the property, and that's the end of the report. Again, the applicants are here. Mr. Chair, I would suggest that when you open the public speaking portion of the hearing, that you allow the applicants to go first. They may wish to add some additional information, and then allow the remainder of the public to speak, should there be others that wish to do so. And I'd be happy to answer questions now or at any time during the presentation. You may want to, unless there's some pressing question, you may want to go through the public hearing process first, and then come back and ask questions.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll proceed that way. So at this time, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. So therefore, I'm guessing that you ladies, yes, are the ones involved? There you go. If you'd like to come forward, because we're going to open the public hearing right now, if you'd like to add anything to what Jerry said, feel free.
I didn't understand the other option that he added, but...
Okay, and we'll discuss that further for you. Not a problem. But at this time, I'm just opening the public hearing right this second on what we're talking about. I just need somebody to state their name and address for us, please.
My name is Sandra Pressler.
And your address, Sandra?
It's at 921 Aspen,
Okay.
and I've stayed there ever since our mother passed away, and actually it's been about 4 years. And we did have a party interested in the house, and we did lose the sale because of the zoning, and so that made us realize that we needed to take some action and, try to figure out what we can do in case that happens again. So we haven't really had anybody interested as far as it being a business, and I've talked to different businesses around the area to see if they might be interested, and like you said, the prices, we're not asking too much because we would like to sell it, but, we need to do something. It's been quite a while here, so.
Sure. The party that backed out, did they back out because they couldn't get...
They couldn't get the
or-
financing. Yes,
Okay.
the underwriter said that he would not finance it because of the zoning. So, and then we did have another party that's interested, and that's still in the making, and it's the same type of a loan. It's through the government. I'm not sure which one it is, but
Okay.
our realtor said it was the same type of a loan, so.
Okay.
It's a loan for people that don't have a lot of money, but they've got a steady income.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, we'd be really interested in order to, get this sold. And as far as the option of the zoning, if that will work, we're open to that.
Okay. That's
Okay.
what I was going to ask you, and you just
Okay.
answered that.
Okay.
Wonderful.
right.
Any questions for Sandra, anybody? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You're a good girl.
Anyone else in the audience this evening wishing to speak, quote, in favor of this rezoning? There being none, we will inquire if there's anyone here to speak against this rezoning issue. And there being nothing on that at this time, we will go ahead then and close the public hearing. And the board and, quote, Mr. Adams will probably shed a little more light on the OS2 for them, please.
Sure, it's just a classification that is closer, you might say, to the B3 than the R2. It's a commercial classification. The R2 that's being requested is a residential classification. Mm-hmm. And in terms of staff, really we don't have opinion one way or the other. Given the fact that right across the street you have R2, So we're not looking at this as like a spot zone. It is a chunk, you might say, out of a fully commercial B3 location. If it were to be rezoned to R2, and in the future, if somebody wanted to, let's say one of the surrounding commercial operations wanted to expand, they would have to come back, and they'd have to get it rezoned to commercial. I doubt that would be difficult. It would just be a process. Right. In terms of the OS2, in addition to residential, it does leave the opportunity or the option open for that property to be used for a host of other things, primarily office and orientation. But again, it's been that way for 3+ years, I guess. So again, staff really doesn't have significant leanings one way or the other. If the commission was definitely against a residential classification, we wanted to have a fallback position. And had we not put it in the notice, you couldn't have considered it. We'd have had to have another public hearing and so on and so forth. I don't see a big issue here. I mean, the surrounding commercial property owners have had plenty of opportunity to purchase this property if they wanted to meld it into their sites. It's very reasonable in price, so that's, I don't believe, an issue. I think it just hasn't been needed by any of the surrounding property owners. And in terms of someone else who's looking at the site for a B3 use, it does have some issues. It doesn't have direct frontage on a main street, for example, like a Mitchell or even a Granite. There are some site development issues. Perhaps it does have some topography to it. It's usable, but its depth is pretty shallow, pretty limited. And the fact that you have a house, it's been designed and built as a house, limits a lot of what you can do with respect to many of the B3 operations without either tearing the house down or radical modifications to it. So it's a nice piece of property. I haven't been in the house, but it's a nice looking home from the outside. It's been well maintained. And, we really don't have a problem with that classification being located right there. Again, recognizing that in the future, if somebody wanted to come along and, say, I'd like to put an insurance office or something else, they'd have to seek a rezoning, but it probably wouldn't be difficult. Can't speak for you or the council in the future, right, but it would make sense. But in the meantime, it lets a viable piece of property be used and maintained. So.
Now, if one of the surrounding businesses wanted to purchase it, would they have to come back and rezone it?
It'd probably have to rezone it, Randy, if depending on what they wanted to do with it. I should add, mention, too, that all the surrounding properties, including the businesses, receive notices. And also, they've been aware for a number of years that this property has been for sale. So, but they all received notices.
Okay. Jerry, if it is an OS2, and it is sold, and they want to live in it, do the purchasers have to come back and
No.
They can just move right in, even if they're not going to use it for a type of office?
No, they can move right in as a home. It's permitted.
It's permitted.
Yeah. Yep, it's permitted.
They could also switch it to that, too, if they wanted to.
In the future, they could, right? Sure.
That might even be easier than the...
From a financing standpoint, probably the easiest is the residential classification, if you're going to use it for a home. And like most of the government programs, and we typically, when a property, well, even if it's zoned residential, we commonly receive phone calls from the lending institutions asking about the very question or the issue she raised, and that is, what's it zoned? If it's not zoned residential, they almost automatically imply, well, if the next question is, can it be rebuilt if it's destroyed by, let's say, fire? And if I say no, then I know, I'm pretty sure what's going to happen. They're going to turn the loan down. Yeah.
Okay. So either way, if it got sold to a commercial, they'd have to have it rezoned. If it was R2 or...
If it's an OS2, it would depend on what they wanted to do with it. For example, if let's say that you wanted to do something like Willow Mercantile, just for talking, it'd have to be rezoned to probably a B3 classification. If it was rezoned to Office 2, the most common type, or the most, probably the one use that would be most likely to happen here is some kind of office.
So if they wanted to be another tattoo parlor and live there,
Yeah,
good,
yeah, good.
under OS2.
Under OS2. And it could get rebuilt under OS2 if it was destroyed.
But that would apply also to R2?
Yes. R2 for sure can be rebuilt without any issues whatsoever.
But would need a special land use permit if they operated a business out of the home.
If they operated a business as an R2,
Yes.
you can have a home occupation, which is kind of out of sight, out of mind, but let's say, may I, Barry? If you wanted to open a real estate office in that home, he'd have to get it, if it was R2, he'd have to get it rezoned.
Oh.
Okay, because he'd want to sign, I'm assuming, he'd have customers, probably have other employees and so forth. That wouldn't fit the qualification of a home occupation. It's not what I like to refer to as, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. We don't know you're there. We know you're there, but you don't you don't have a real impact on surrounding, surrounding neighbors and so forth. And again, staff doesn't have an issue with the R2 at this point in time.
Okay.
We'll call it what it is, huh?
R2?
I'll make a motion to change the zoning to R2.
Take it and run. Okay, is that, sorry, I was supposed to make that announcement about turning off cell phones. My fault.
Sorry.
My fault.
Better change that motion,
Change the motion to ring a ring.
I turned mine off.
I leave mine in the vehicle. Okay. Are we ready for the motion still?
Is it a recommendation to the council?
Yes, sir.
And the findings of facts are what?
Basically, there will be the information that we've provided in the staff report that I presented tonight. Those will be put together.
Thank you.
Okay. What? Sure.
Nope, you have a motion on the table.
Well, not legally yet, we were ding-a-linged, but...
Okay.
Well, I have Mr. Van
You do
Lindsay as making the motion.
Oh, you have that, okay. So I need a second, please. Mr. Peterson, second.
Okay.
And roll call, please.
Okay, we have a motion by Van Lindsay, supported by Peterson, to recommend to the Cadillac City Council the rezoning of the following described property, which I won't describe, but we know what it is.
Yes, sir.
From its current B3 to R2, based on the findings of fact as presented in the staff report and as discussed tonight. Sichtel.
Yes.
Barnett.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Van Lindsay.
Yes.
Champlin.
Yes.
Putman.
Yes.
Okay, so this recommendation will then go to City Council.
October 7th, ladies.
Yes, whatever date the mayor said.
Yes.
It is
Yeah.
first Monday in October.
What time?
7 p.m. is when the meeting starts, and you'll be on the agenda.
Same room.
Same room, different gang of, there'll be 5 folks here and probably fewer questions. I don't think you'll need to stand up unless you want to.
She's the oldest, she should have done it anyway.
She did a wonderful job.
They realize they're on television, don't they?
They do now.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Or they will be.
And you are welcome yet, because we still have more stuff, or you are welcome to go too, if you like. Okay. So much for that party.
And it would be helpful if you did attend the city council meeting, because the council may have questions as well, and they'll be the body that will make the final decision. So the first meeting coming up will just be setting the public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah. That was not as critical. They'll set the public hearing, you'll be notified of that. And then it's at the next meeting where they'll actually have the I think it's the next meeting, or 2 meetings thereafter, they'll actually set the public hearing. We'll be in contact with you and let you know what's going on. So, okay?
Thank you.
You bet.
That way we know when we have to be there.
I'll make sure you know.
Jerry. Alrighty. Under new business this evening, we have a consideration of a lot division request from a Ross and Wendy Breeze, hopefully I didn't kill that, for a parcel commonly addressed as 203 and 203 and a half East Chapin Street. This is support documents 5A in everyone's packets. I went by there, it's quite an interesting deal.
Yeah, I did too.
And having read that, Mr. Adams.
Okay. Again, let's do, it won't be as lengthy as the last one, but you've already indicated who the property owners are, Ross and Wendy. Are you Ross? Okay. And how about your guests, maybe for the benefit of...
This is my real estate agent, Barry Paul.
Okay, so the applicants are here tonight. And the Breeze, their address is 622 Lincoln Street, so they're residents of the city of Cadillac, Michigan. They own this property. One of the things that we need to clarify, not right now, but at least soon, and that is, in the application, there was some variations in the actual lots, the outcome in terms of dimensions. So in your staff report, I may have some incorrect dimensions. Not going to be significant, but we want to make sure it's not going to change the staff report, whether it's 90 feet or 84 feet, for example. But we want to make sure in your motion that the dimensions of the two parcels, should you recommend the split, that they're consistent with what the applicant is wanting, okay? Because again, this is going to be a recommendation to City Council, and we want to make sure we're sending the appropriate recommendation to Council. So we'll get into that in just a second. Parcel, as noted by the Chair, is commonly addressed as both 203 and 203 and a half Chapin Street, Cadillac, Michigan. I won't read the legal, and also your packet had the tax ID number. By the way, not sure I got it in here, but let's see, no. Planning Commission did get a packet, the application, an aerial of the site with kind of an approximate boundary location and some additional information, so they've had an opportunity to review this. This is the property, this is Chapin along here, this is the site right here, this is an alley. There are two homes on this lot. This is the 203 and the 203 and a half. I'm not sure how long the two homes have been there, but it's been for a rather lengthy period of time. Those are not new homes. And so most likely they may have pre-existed zoning. I don't know. But there are two lots on a single parcel, which is not too common in the city. There's a few instances where you find this, but it's not very common to have two homes on a single lot like this. Again, the parcel contains two single-family residential. The overall lot is 50 feet wide by 144 feet deep. This is pretty consistent with every other lot in that general area. When this area was subdivided, platted, these were the dimensions that most of the lots were designed to. The dwelling to the north basically has frontage on a public alley, and under the ordinance, the public alley can serve as the access to a piece of property. And again, the alley does provide access to the site and to the home. And the dwelling on the south on Chapin obviously is accessed by Chapin, and both of those have 50 feet of frontage. As noted, the owners wish to divide the parcel. They want to create two lots, with each lot possessing a dwelling. I'm not going to get into the legal descriptions, but this is where we want to make sure we have the correct information. I'm noting, for example, at least in this presentation, the lot on the north would be 50 feet wide on the alley and 54 feet deep, and then on the south, 50 feet along Chapin and 90 feet deep. You may want to adjust that, but when you get up in a few minutes, you can, and again, it's not going to have really any impact on the presentation, but we just want to make sure that the lot sizes that are developed, or that are indicated, is what we pass on to the City Council. I just kind of hypothetically, theoretically, Lot A and Lot B, it goes back to what I was doing here. Parcel A and then is the one to the north by the alley. Parcel B is the one to the south. Parcel B having the somewhat larger lot associated with it. Parcel A being the smaller of the two. So why is this before you? Well, Section 20.4 of the City Code governs plat amendments. This was a platted piece of property. It was part of a subdivision platted many years ago. And paragraph A of that section provides that the City Council, after recommendation from the Planning Commission, may, by resolution or ordinance, approve the division of platted lots. And you've done this in the past. So these folks want to divide this lot, split it up in some fashion, and they can go before council requesting that, but before they can do so, they have to come to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission looks at it more from a zoning and land use point of view, and then you will provide a recommendation to the City Council. As part of that recommendation, you can also stipulate conditions if you so desire. You don't have to, but as you'll see, staff is recommending some conditions. As noted, the site contains 2 single-family residential dwellings on a single parcel. If you are going to recommend that it be divided or split in some fashion, it will then attach to each dwelling a specific defined lot area, and that's consistent with the majority of single-family dwellings in the city and neighborhood. Now, granted, these 2 lots potentially will be somewhat undersized, but nonetheless, the vast majority of single-family dwellings in the city are on their own lot. Okay, they're not part of a lot in which there are other homes. And very importantly, each parcel will possess frontage on a public right-of-way for purposes of ingress and egress. One is an alley, one is a public street, but again, that will essentially meet the qualifications or requirements of the ordinance. We can't develop a site without some form of ingress and egress. You've got to be able to get to the site. And theoretically, you could provide access across one of the parcels, like the parcel on Chapin. If there was sufficient room, you could say, okay, they could provide a driveway that goes to the parcel to the north, provided they also provided an easement for access. But in this case, the parcel does have, or the property does have frontage on 2 public rights-of-way. In terms of if this is approved, we have a series of conditions. These are pretty typical. Well, it's not like we've selected conditions just for this, but one is that we would want to see a completion of a boundary survey by a qualified professional surveyor licensed in the state of Michigan. It's typical boilerplate language that delineates the boundaries of the proposed lots, and we want to see those surveys recorded with the Wexford County Register of Deeds with a copy provided to us. And obviously, it would be the cost for that survey and recording would be borne by the applicant, because we want to make sure that if this in fact is done, there's proper delineation and recordation of the 2 parcels. Secondly, we chatted with the other departments in the city about this, and another condition we would recommend is that each parcel, each parcel, that it be provided with independent municipal water and sanitary sewer systems, individual connections and metering. If these are going to be divided as individual lots, we want to have each one have their own water main, their own sewer line, and their own meters. We prefer not to have, for example, House A get its water service through the same water main that House B is getting theirs through. Okay, it creates some issues. 2 big issues. What if one doesn't pay their portion? Or what if something happens to one of them and it gets shut off, then it shuts the other one off. So that it raises a lot of issues. Same thing, we like to see each parcel provided with independent energy and communication systems, like natural gas, electrical services, and communication systems. In other words, if we're going to create two freestanding individual parcels, they need to be serviced accordingly. And then 4, in terms of the access to water and sewer and these other systems, it may be, let me see if I've got, let me go back to this aerial. It may, for example, be prudent or necessary. Let's say, just hypothetically, let's say there's an existing water main off of Chapin that serves both of these. This is all one parcel now, owned by one individual. We split it, okay? Well, we still got the water main with, let's say, laterals connecting to each of the house. But the only way we can get to that water main, for example, is, well, we've got to cross this person's property for some reason. They won't let us to repair something that's right here to help this guy. We want to make sure proper easements are in place, okay, between the two parties, if in fact those easements are needed. If there's going to be, and this would have to be determined a little later, but if there's going to be a need, for example, to serve and in doing so we have to cross B, then we want an easement to let us cross it. Conversely, if we serve B and we have to cross A, we want them to provide an easement to allow us to do so. It's not so much for our benefit, because once you get on private property, it's their systems. It's really for the benefit of the future property owners, so they don't have to worry so much about, oh my gosh, you can't get to my line, or you can't fix, because they won't let me come across the property. Okay. Make sense?
Do you know if that condition exists?
It does to some degree.
Okay.
And let's see. Got a rather lengthy draft motion if you decide to approve this. I had to kind of split it up, otherwise even this is hardly legible. But basically, let me read, I won't read all the legals, but subject to the finding and conditions noted below, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the land division application dated July 7th, 2013, submitted by the applicants, providing for the division of the following parcel, resulting in the creation of two parcels as described below. And this first one is the current legal description, and then we would want to have two legal, if you approve this or approve it for, or recommend approval, we would want the two legal descriptions that reflect what these gentlemen, what the applicants want. This one says the north 54 feet, that's the parcel to the north, and the parcel to the south would be the south 90 feet. If we want to change that, if they want to change it, we need to do it tonight. But basically, those would be the two parcels. Why are we recommending this? If you want to have if you're looking for a reason or reasons, and this goes back to what I stated earlier. One is the site contains two existing single-family residential dwellings on a single parcel. The division will attach each dwelling to a specific defined lot area consistent with the majority of single-family dwellings in the city and neighborhood, even though we know they'll be undersized. And secondly, each parcel will possess frontage on a public right-of-way for purposes of site ingress and egress. Those are our reasons for the motion. And in terms of condition of approval, again, I won't reiterate these, but the conditions as part of the motion would be the boundary survey is noted, the independent municipal systems, the independent private systems, and the easements provided, the cross easements provided in the event there needs to be easements for the utilities and so forth as mentioned. And again, just a little indication or an aerial showing the approximate location of the two parcels. In terms of what are the issues or downsides? Not a lot. I think the biggest downside is you end up with two undersized parcels, but theoretically they're already undersized because of the presence of the two homes. So they don't meet zoning as it is right now. Is this going to exacerbate the situation? Well, it's going to create two distinct parcels that are somewhat undersized. Conversely, though, it's going to make the situation, I think, a little better in that, somewhat better in that each will have land area attached to it, probably would make them more saleable, and I believe that's one of the issues that has surfaced in the past, is the properties are for sale, and individuals just aren't interested in, maybe they want the house on B or the house on A, but they don't want the other one. And so, with that, I think that, yep, that's it. With that, Mr. Chair, the applicants are here. They may have some additional information to offer. I'd like to see them affirm the dimensions, just to make sure we're on the same wavelength. And again, I'm sure they could answer any questions you might have.
Before I bring them up, if example, if parcel A were to burn,
These could be rebuilt.
with setbacks,
May not, that's going to be an issue, but the zoning would allow them to be rebuilt. They may have to go to the zoning board of appeals to do so.
okay.
But the current zoning classification would allow the homes, so.
Any other questions for, no? Okay. Come forwards, please. Tell us your name and address, please, and...
My name is Ross Vrees. I reside at 622 Lincoln Street.
Hi, Ross.
Cadillac. Thank you for having me tonight. Little history, I guess Dr. Martin Dubrovic did an article on that. One of the houses was built in 1920, and I believe the southern house, was actually brought over from Jennings before the 1900s. It's kind of interesting. But we bought the property May of 2000. We lived in front house B for 4 years, and then when our family expanded, we moved up the hill to a bigger house, and we have since been renting out those 2 houses as rental property. And as of 2008, we decided we wanted to be done being landlords due to various ugly evictions, and decided to try to set the houses for sale. Thought any landlord would jump at the opportunity for a 2-for-1 special. When we lived in it, the back rental house itself covered 80% of our mortgage, so it was working out well for us financially. When we moved up the hill a half mile, we were unable to kind of supervise our tenants as well as we hoped for. So, that being said, not many people jumped at the opportunity to buy 2 houses for one price. I know it's kind of been a financial thing with the bank that a lot of people will not be approved for buying 2 houses because their family only needs to really live in one. So we since switched realtors about 6 months ago, and the idea came to split the properties, and we didn't know that was an option for us. So come to find out, if this works out well, this would open up the housing market for someone that could afford a $40,000 house as opposed to 2 houses for $65,000 is kind of what we have it listed. Currently, the houses are metered separately. There is a water line that goes straight to the back house. We refer to it as House A, the north house, and a separate one that goes to the front. We've had to shut off the water lines to repair a lot of plumbing in the House A, the 2-bedroom house. So they have a separate gas line, they have separate electrical, and the water line is all individualized. So that kind of, hopefully fixes one of the conditions.
Without crossing...
Well, the line does go through the property of the southern lot B. Okay. So, that would probably be an understanding we would have to probably write into, the county courthouse records or however that works.
Is that on the west side?
Trying to think. The sidewalk you can see just to the left of the 50. Most of those run to the other side of the sidewalk. So, it's out of the way, yard-wise. It's not a big hassle, I would think, but, we don't know what our future property owners would feel. The reason I did 60-40, I kind of put a tape in order to give the yard kind of halfway, about where that yellow line is. The house on lot B is significantly bigger, just to give them a little bit more grassy area is kind of why I threw the number 60 for the north side, 84 for the south, but I'm open to any surveyor's interpretation or that kind of thing too, so. Any other questions? Thank you for the detailed information that you pulled together, Mr. Adams.
Not that it's probably our problem, but I kind of thought the garage might be on the lot, but by this photo, it's...
Yeah, the garage is on the north side, just to the right of the A, and we just kind of split that north-south, so the smaller two-bedroom house on the north side would get the garage, and the larger Lot B would be without the garage, just for simplicity's sake, you know, and then we'll probably put the price tag on very similar. I mean, you can have a smaller house with a garage, or you can have a bigger house without a garage and a little bit bigger lot. Is kind of our justification there.
Are they rented at this time, Ross?
They are currently filled, yes.
One thing I noticed, Ross, I drove by there today before the meeting, and I noticed that there was no curb cut or driveway in Lot B, or proposed Lot B.
Yeah.
Is there going to be provision for that, for the snow removal in the winter?
We would
and all that,
probably
so
take it upon as the landowners to do that once an offer was made, you know, on the Lot B house. You know, cut that out, or, you know, we'd probably have to get some kind of a building permit or whatever.
Make a driveway in there so they have a place to park in the winter.
Yep.
And that kind of was my thought too, with where those easements would go if they were on the west. It kind of seemed to me that the logical place for a driveway would be on the west side of that, and is that where the easement...
left of that sidewalk was what I would picture too.
Yeah. So my only concern with that would be the easement for the utilities in the event anything had to be done. Are you tearing up a driveway and all that other stuff, or are you putting a driveway right over top of...
Yeah. Well, we'd be more specific where the water line would go, and go right or left, I would imagine. Probably left of that, as long as there's enough room on the west side of the property line.
Where did you park when you...
We parked in the garage, because we owned both of them.
Right.
We lived in the big house, we parked in the garage, and it was understood that the big house, even with our rentals, the big house kind of got the garage, and the smaller house just got the driveway between the garage and the house. That was kind of the understanding. So that's kind of how we did it, and sometimes, you know, depending on who's living there, they had an agreement where, you know, maybe each got a stall, or... Yeah.
Okay. Good catch on that one, Dave. I didn't pull out front to see that.
It took me a while to drive around there, and it was like, what is actually going on here?
And another thing, you know, kind of for argument's sake, you know, the property just west has a similar thing where they broke, you know, the lot up too, and, you know, so I guess it's nothing new in that block. The neighbors around there, an older retired guy, he's been very cooperative with tenants and kind of gives us the scoop on them sometimes, and the Oasis is the next one up, so most of the people that live in that block are pretty transient, I guess, to say the least. You know, they're in, they're out kind of thing, except for the one retired guy, so. And he goes south several winters too, so. But.
Any other questions for Ross?
Nope. I don't have any.
We'll be good? Okay.
All right, thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
Thanks, Ross. Barry's here too. Hey. Sure, please. Tell us who you
My
are.
name is Barry Fall. I'm the broker owner, actually, at ERA. And I guess kind of reiterate what Ross was saying, he brought me in about 6 months ago. He had been in the market were we in about 2 years, I think, before that?
I think it was 2008 when we started.
Several years, he tried marketing the property as 2 homes. So he had me come in, kind of look at it, offer suggestions, things to make it more marketable, offer it up to more buyers potentially. In looking at the property, we walked through the property. As you can see, parking right now is an issue. especially with 2 homes in the property, it's just not there. I mean, they were even using, you can see there's a parking lot in the back there, kind of a public lot. They'd have to use that at times if anybody come over. So parking was an issue. Also financing options were an issue. When you have 2 homes in the same property, lending institutions do not like to loan on that. It's considered an investment property at that point, which requires an investor with some money down, and in this area there's not a lot of people with money down, so limits the number of buyers. So I offered this up and said this might be something we'd want to look at and see if it's an option to split the property, add some additional parking on B off of the road, and cut a curb in there and put a little parking up front. Thought that may open it up to a few more people, and I've actually had inquiries since I've listed the property wondering if it could be split. See if they could purchase just one of the homes, so. I believe that is all I had to add. Did you have any questions for me?
I don't. I'm good.
I don't.
Well, thank you.
We're good. Thank you.
I did have one more question for Ross, though. Now, in our documents, it shows different lot splits, as Jerry had mentioned, and I just wanted to make sure I caught you right. It was on the north lot, you wanted 50 by 60, and then 50 by 84 on the south?
Yes, correct. 50 by
Okay.
60 on the north and 50 by 84 on the south.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
60 and 50 by 84. And we got our correct depths there.
Okay.
Okay. Guess I'd entertain a motion if you have all the info,
I
gentlemen.
entertain the motion, or make the motion with the conditions that Jerry laid out to approve it.
Second.
Before, may I make a comment? I know Randy's already made a motion, but do you want to add the condition about the curb cut?
I do. I want to add a condition that there is access off Chapin Street in there.
For what we call parcel B.
For parcel B, yes. Just because of the snowplow zoning, or not zoning, but parking restrictions in the wintertime, you can't park on the streets. So, I think in all due fairness, there should be access off that for the new tenant to get their vehicle off the street.
Is that okay, Randy?
Fine with me.
Is there some flexibility as to the numbers for staff to finalize that, or
In terms of what, Mayor? What?
the lots, the exact split that's going to be where the yellow...
Yeah, there's still flexibility. This is going to be a recommendation to City Council, and before we come to Council too, we're going to do a little more field work, but it's probably going to be very close to what, if not right on what you're suggesting. I tend to, so far at least, I tend to agree that the larger house and the smaller house and the commensurate yards in them, but we can see. We need support.
I would say.
Mr. Van Lente?
Oh, okay, Dave, supported, okay.
Roll call.
Okay, motion by Champlin, supported by Van Lente to approve the lot split, lot division. The northerly lot 60 by 50, the southerly lot 84 by 50. It's based on the findings and conditions that are detailed in the staff report, along with the condition that was added regarding the curb cut and driveway off Chapin Street. Okay, Peterson.
Yes.
Van Lente.
Yes.
Schichtel.
Yes.
Champlin.
Yes.
Barnett.
Yes.
Putman.
Yes.
Okay, this will go to the Cadillac City Council.
Same schedule as the last one, maybe?
Yeah, this one, I don't know if this one requires a public hearing for the council, so, but it'll be basically the same schedule. We'll let you know. Okay?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Ross.
Thanks a lot. And 5B, which is Mr. Adams is going to give us a presentation on Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion Master Plan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is going to be real short because you're going to see this again hopefully next month. There's been a committee that's been working rather diligently although we've had a little bit of a layoff during the summer months, but looking at essentially the Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion. I think you all know where that's at, right here, the city park right across the street. There's the fountain. But this area right here is being somewhat reworked. And again, I'm not going to go over all this tonight because you're going to see this again in more depth. But the committee's been looking at modifications, improvements to the pavilion, circulation modifications, seating modifications, and so forth. Basically developing a master plan for the Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion site for improvements in the future. And you may be aware that the Cadillac Area Rotary Club, they have pledged $120,000, I believe, already towards the project. When it's all said and done, we're probably looking at something that's going to be close to $500,000. So it's likely going to be done in phases. But what I'd like to do is next month, at your next meeting, is in your packet would include a more comprehensive report, a blow-up of this, and we would do a presentation, but I'd like to invite the public to that presentation. We haven't had a public presentation yet on this draft. This is still a draft. But before we finalize this, I think it would be beneficial to get the public's input. And so we'd have a notice put in the paper. I thought this would be really an opportune, a good place to have a public workshop or a public informational meeting. Would be during the Planning Commission meeting, and I'd schedule it for next, so there will be a meeting next month. I'd schedule it for next month. Again, we'd have some larger boards sitting around here too, so it'd be a little bit easier to see maybe, but, and some blow-ups of individual sections, but just wanted to let you know what's happening and that you'll see this again, and hopefully you'll see a few folks out here next month as we, what we'll do is we'll kind of detail how this came about and then specifically go through the list of projects that are being planned and give you an opportunity as well as the public too to say, yeah, we like that or we don't like that, or make suggestions. So just want to let you know what's going on.
Wonderful.
Okay?
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Invite people, wow. That aren't mad at us, wow.
Party. People don't get mad at you. You won't let them.
Okay. Old business being nothing, tabled items being nothing. Any board member comments this evening? Okay, nay, enjoying those gorgeous temperatures in the morning, frost, late evening.
He just wants to see if I'll put that in the minutes, he likes to catch me missing things.
I'm good. Any public comments? Patrick?
Actually, I do want to make a comment, because I think it's kind of ironic how...
Please state your name and address for us.
Pat Vaughn, 401 Fairway in Cadillac. To me, it was kind of ironic how both these came up, because I was looking at the first one, and I'm not against or for or whatever, good for the people and for the council itself, but I was wondering what would take to split the property, because I noticed their property was narrow and real long. And basically, I know where the property is, because I drive by it all the time, but it has the house, and then there's just nothing but open. And I was looking at it saying, I wonder if they consider even splitting that, where you'd leave one still Zone B3, the other one Zone Residential. I didn't think that'd be a problem, and you could actually still keep...
Not sure based on 52 feet deep if there'd be enough.
That was the issue, was you'd end up with essentially two undersized lots based on zoning.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, they have looked at a variety of options. I've met with the ladies before and talking about a host of options, and it really boiled down to they just weren't able to, they haven't been able to sell the property. And I've talked to, there have been other realtors, or a number of realtors involved over the last several years, and so far I just haven't had any success.
Okay.
It's a good point, though.
Yeah,
Yep.
how big does the property have to be for that?
I'd have to look it up, I don't recall, but...
Because I was thinking you said something like 194 feet.
Right.
144 was more standard depth lots, but
So it wouldn't, yeah.
So, in this case, it was 194 frontage
Mm-hmm.
by the 52.
And that's something we would have entertained, quite frankly. Let's say, for example, that one of the surrounding businesses, like, take Willow Mercantile.
Right, I mean,
Brian, if I'm on the, okay, I know the Brian. I mean, let's say, for example, had they come in and said, you know, we'd like to buy maybe the north 25 feet or the north 50 feet or something, but that's never happened, so.
right, because all his coolers and everything are right there by him, and,
And it's still not out of the realm of impossibility in the future, so.
right. True. With nothing else being said, we're adjourned.
Thank you, gentlemen.